just want you to see the sections, okay? So up over the ear, all right? Because if I just take a straight across section, then it's going to make it too thin around the ear. Up over the occipital bone, and then the same on the right hand side. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a number 1 guard, okay, and I'm going to take it as close, you know, Kariz wants this to be as close to the scalp as possible. So I'm going to take this all the way down where you're actually going to see scalp. Okay? We're only going to do anything like this on a client who is completely open to really what you want to do. So I think trying to sell this to a client is really not ready for this kind of a look. I wouldn't even think about doing. But you have somebody that comes in who's completely open, ready to do something like completely different. You don't really have to sell it to her. You just have to get in and do it. But you have to get in and do it with a system. And, you know, that's what makes, that's what makes my particular system easy to create with, because we have all of these rules that we have to follow no matter what kind of style that we're going to cut into the hair. So it just becomes really, really easy to be able to create, you know, when you've got systems that you can fall back on. And really, basically, when you think about it, the only system that I'm going to be falling back on is going to be my system for cutting one length hair. This, what I've just done here, is, you know, you can either love it or hate it. It doesn't make any difference, okay? The only thing that makes a difference to me is that the client loves it. But when you have somebody, like I was mentioning, when you have somebody that's as open as Kariz, you don't have to worry about the consultation. You just have to say, this is what I would really like to do. She's going to say, this is what I would really like you to do. And then you come up with the idea. So now what I'm going to do is you want the hair to be as straight as possible. So I'm going to take a product called Sensational Shine, and I'm just going to spray just a small amount on the hair. The thing about this product, which is nice, is it has heat protection in it, and it'll protect the hair from the heat of the flat irons. And I'm going to comb the hair exactly the way that it falls, and take my sections, just completely make that, you know, as straight as possible. This way we can emulate the texture of the hair as if it was wet. So I'm going to do that all the way around. So no bend in the hair whatsoever at the ends. And when I cut the ends, I'm going to cut them actually with just the tips of my scissors, so that I'm basically going to be chipping into the hair as I take the length off, because what I don't want is I don't want to see a blunt cut. And so that's why the hair has to be this particular texture before I actually do the haircut, so that we don't have any kind of wave or movement in the hair whatsoever. It does. That's the lovely thing about what we do in our business, is that you can create, and then in 6 weeks' time, the client can come back in and we can create again. All right, so now that we have finished flat ironing, now we're ready to put the shape in. And so, because I'm going to be leaving it one length, but without blunt cutting it, that is the only thing that's going to change, is the fact that I'm not going to blunt cut. Everything that I talked about in the blueprint, the sections that I took in the blueprint, are going to apply here to Kariz's hair. The way that I comb it is going to be the same as I did in the blueprint. So if we refer back, we're going to take a parting from the top of the head to right behind the ear. And then remember, this is what's important at the back for my particular system. I mean, the thing to remember is that everybody has their own system of hair cutting, and I would never say that this is the only way that you can ever do a one-length haircut. But for us here at the studio, this is what works for us, and these are the reasons why. So I take the back into 4 sections. So we have the side section, we have the side back section, then we have the middle section, and then a side back section here. And the reason why we have this many sections is because what we don't want to do is we don't want to get into over direction when we're combing the hair. So if I just take the back section into one section and do a center parting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my line in here, for instance, and then, because that is all combing straight down, so that's going to be fine. But then, if I haven't made this into a section here, what's going to happen is I'm going to do that. I'm going to comb it like that. And Winston, if you can bring the camera so that you can see, I've taken the root system here and I've dragged it back, which means that when it falls, it's going to fall over here, because this is where that grows to. And then it's going to, I'm going to get too much graduation on this section of the hair here, as opposed to no graduation on the section of the hair here. So those are the reasons why I'm taking the partings that I take. And like I said, there are, there are many ways of cutting on one length. And for me, it's, it's figuring out what makes the most sense. And for me, when I'm creating, I have to look at the hair as a sculptor looks at any medium that he's going to be working on. So I'm going to take this, comb it down, hold it between my fingers, and cut my line in. Here, and my fingers are resting right against the client's shoulder, which I think is really important to mention, because a lot of times one is asked the question, well, how do you know that this side is going to be the same length as this side? And the thing to remember is that, and this is going to make it so easy for people, for everybody, is that you cut, when you've cut your first side and it touches the shoulder at a certain length, okay? When you come through to do the other side, you cut the other side at precisely the same point on the shoulder that you did on the first side. The other thing to remember, okay, is that my parting here, okay, just push back there a little bit, Kariz there. My parting here is always parallel to the line that I'm cutting into the hair. This is very important, because subconsciously, I will do down here whatever that parting tells me to do. So for instance, if I was to just take a parting like this, just to get the hair out of the way, which is in an A line, okay? I'll probably do the same thing down here, because subconsciously, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm only parting the hair to get it out of the way. But it's really important that the parting that you take here to get this hair out of the way parallels the line that you're cutting into the hair. Then I'm really thinking about what I'm doing down here because of the way that I parted the hair here. Like, I must never get into the habit of just parting the hair just to get it out of the way, okay? There has to be a reason why this parting is the way that it is. Like everything else that I actually do when I'm cutting hair, there is a reason for doing everything. And I think, when I'm teaching, if there's a reason for doing everything, then I think artists will want to try. Okay, so once again, okay, my parting is parallel with the line that I'm going to cut into the hair here. Really important. Nothing changes from the blueprint. Absolutely nothing. And that's what's so great about the system that I've created, because you don't need 1,001 different techniques to come up with 1,001 different looks. You know, it really is, it's all about understanding the hair and what it's capable of doing, and then carving a shape into the hair. And by carving a shape into the hair, it makes it so easy for the client to do, because, you know, basically she doesn't have to do anything but wash her hair, and the style falls right into the way, I mean, it just dries perfectly. And that's why I always say, you know, even though I have my own product line, I always say that, you know, use product only to enhance the haircut. Never ever use product to make the haircut work. Okay, so this is just to finish off, just to get any overlaps. And one always gets overlaps after you have combed the hair for the way that it grows, because, you know, it has to go into its fall line. And then you can just take off just these ends, because then you can see exactly how much to take off. Right. How's that length, love?
Love it.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, now sit down again for me, Kariz. Okay, so now, what are we going to do with the front? So, we know that Kariz is going to take this hair and tie this back.
Yep.
Correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just look at this for a minute. We want to be able to get it all back.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want anything falling out, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to wet this down because it has to be parted off in a certain way, and it's going to be better if it's wet. So let's do this. What I'm looking for is this long hair here that's going into the side that I know is going to be able to go back into, hopefully not an elastic band, but
No.
okay.
What is an elastic band?
Something that can actually ruin your hair. So with the fringes, okay, triangular section, and then when I take my partings, remember my partings are parallel to the hairline, irregardless of what shape I'm going to cut into the fringe. So we're going to do it so that it's straight around. So when I do a straight across fringe, okay, I cut it so that it's basically into a slight point in the center. And the reason why I do that is because then when it dries, the roundness of the head will give it that straight across look. everything is going to be cut against the skin. Another reason why my scissors are so small, okay, is because I want to get as close to the skin as I possibly can. So I'm using really, you know, my 4-inch scissors, and I'm holding the scissors with my middle finger so that I get the scissor flat right against the forehead. If I'm holding the scissor with my 4th finger, I have too many fingers underneath the scissor. It makes it really, really hard to cut that against the skin, which makes me pick that up between my fingers and cut like this. The minute I pick the hair up between my fingers and cut between my fingers in this position, I no longer am able to follow the root system. So these are all of the reasons why I do what I do in this particular situation. So cutting it right against the skin. Okay, so when I comb that, I just want that to sit in there. So I do exactly the same thing on the other side. And, okay, combing it, following the way that is growing. And cut right against the skin. So that when I comb that, it just sits in. Take the next section. Bring this down. Comb it, following the roots. God, you see how nothing changes. I mean, I'm saying the same thing all the time, but just cutting in different shapes. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just really exciting. And I know that if you do it, it's going to make it so much easier for you as artists to be able to follow this. When you're cutting the hair wet, really, the only thing that we're doing is we're cutting in our basic length. We're not going for any finish work. The finish work comes when we blow the hair dry. You see, when you blow it dry, it takes on a completely different look. And you see, that sits. I mean, I haven't blown it dry like this to get it to sit in. If I blow it dry like this to get it to sit in, my client is going to have to do the same thing. Otherwise, it isn't going to look like this. And what I want is for Kariz to wake up in the morning, wash her hair, and have the fringe basically do what it's doing now by itself. You know, the the lesson is, where do I cut it so that the fringe does this by itself? And so, you know, looking at that wave pattern, looking for where that hair comes out of the head, bounces into the neck at this, into the forehead at this point. Then it goes into another wave. So the hair does this and it does this. And where we have to cut it is right where that first bend moves into the neck. And then it just does this. I mean, you can do this and it's just, look, there's nowhere for it to go, you know? I mean, it's there, which is what we want to do when we carve a shape into the hair. This is my dry hair cutting bob. And just to go over everything so that we know exactly what we've done, okay? We took zigzag partings underneath. Okay, took a number 1 for the clipper, all right? Got it as close to the scalp as we should, all right? And then to cut the shape in all the way around, remember, we took our 4 sections at the back, 2 sections on the side. The important thing for me, okay, when I'm doing this system, is starting at the back, cutting the back in first, and then moving around. Now, you know, here's another thing. The client is sitting in the chair and she's facing the mirror. And I think it's, for me, when I'm doing a haircut, it's really, really important that the client is looking at what I'm doing, all right? Because I think it gives her confidence in what I'm doing, okay? And she sees what's happening. While we've been cutting Kariz's hair, okay, I have been turning the chair so that you can see what I've been doing. In the salon, she would be in this position, which means that when I'm cutting this back panel here, I'm standing right opposite that panel. Then I am going to move to here, all right? And I find this, you know, with times when I've been teaching, that my students sometimes will just station themselves behind the client like this. And then what happens then is that it's so easy for them to get the back panel right, but then because they're not moving around, they're taking the side panel and they're bringing it over towards themselves because it's making it easy for them to cut. And then they're cutting, and then of course this moves over to the left-hand side where it needs to be, where it should be, and where it should have been cut. So my client is always facing the mirror, and I'm the one that moves around, so she doesn't have to, okay? And then by me moving around, it makes it so much easier to be able to follow the way that the hair is growing and cut it at the point where it needs to be, where the hair falls, all right? So the partings, remember, have to be parallel with the shape that I've cut into the hair here. The partings here are parallel to the line that I'm cutting into the side here. When we come to do the fringe, all right, the fringe is always taken into a triangular section. The natural parting is going to be always where the point of the triangle ends up, all right? When we section the fringe section off to put the line in, the partings are always parallel to the hairline. The reason why is because that allows us to have really nice, even distribution of the fringe to cut. Everything has to be cut right against the skin, not between your fingers, okay? And so once again, that's the reason why my scissors are the length that they are. So I hope you have enjoyed this class, all right, and you've got something out of it, and hopefully you will be able to take, you know, maybe 2 or 3 pointers that, you know, that I've talked about and add it to your own system of hair cutting. And I thank you very much for watching and look forward to doing another haircut for you very soon.